All right, this is Kill You Last. I'm Peter Garachi.
I'm Alex Pashera. Hey, everybody.
Hey, back for the second time. We have Adam Gabel. What's up, Adam?
Hello, how are you? I'm glad that you introduced me early. Last time, when we were just audio, there was like 2.5 minutes before I said anything, and then just as we started, I was like, "Oh, it's gonna be really awkward if I have to sit here silently."
Oh, really? We didn't we just started. Me and Alex
Was
were just
Peter
talking without
fucking
you.
yap? Was it Peter? Or was it
Well,
yapping?
no, I mean, I think you had some things to say. It was fine. I mean, I'm not, I don't.
Do you happen to remember what we talked about? I honestly don't remember.
I think it was just related to like the last couple podcasts. You were having a good time. Your podcast was doing well. And I
apologize for that because I don't remember not bringing you in. I think Adam was actually one of the few comics I've seen in the last couple months. Like we ran into each other at a barbecue 2 weeks ago, and I don't want to say which one it is, but we both talked about doing a podcast where the host talked for 40 minutes. And then they were like, "Hey, what do you think, Peter?" And I go, "I think you should bring the guest in sooner."
This was not as egregious as that. I mean, you start a podcast, you go, "Hey, what's going on? We're doing this thing. We've been great." It was just an intro. That was fine. I just realized.
We don't do segments where the guest arrives like after the show has started. You're in from the beginning.
Can I ask? I know you don't want to say the podcast, but can I ask? Do I know these people or this person?
I'm sure you do. They do a really good job. They do it, but they do they do it like old school radio where it is like segments. So the guest is sitting there while they're doing the other stuff. So I was like ready to go.
I can't imagine what that would be like in a Zoom situation where the guy's there and you're just like,
blank stare.
I guess maybe you bring me in later. I don't know what's up, but it was nice to see you at that barbecue, Peter. I was glad because I wanted to come back and do this thing with you again. I saw you at the barbecue. You were in like a
Panama
like a wide brim Panama hat. You kind of look like you were like halfway between Marlon Brando as Vito Corleone and Marlon Brando as Dr. Moreau. It was pretty dope.
Honestly, that's right where I'm. That's my sweet spot.
Yeah,
that's my sweet spot.
Like a Don Juan DeMarco kind of thing, I suppose.
Like crazy, like completely out there. Marlon Brando is up there for me.
Yeah, it was pretty hot out there. So and that little guy that you were with.
Oh, who's the little guy you were with? You got another friend, Peter?
That's a Dr. Moreau joke.
Oh, gotcha.
Dr. Moreau joke.
I'm losing my mind. I don't know movies, but I do a movie podcast. It's interesting.
Sometimes it works out that way.
Yeah. So we have a fun, I would say, a very fun movie this week. I think Adam picked a really good one. This is another one of those that I should have seen that I hadn't seen before. Even though it's right up my alley, I'm a big music guy. I produce music. I've been in rock bands. A lot of this really hit like 10 out of 10 with me, or 11 out of 11, maybe I should say. For real, this movie was very funny.
We didn't say what it was.
Oh, we're getting into it. This is Spinal Tap is what we're doing.
Adam, just sit there quietly till we're ready for you.
Yeah, we're gonna. This is the episode where the guest doesn't talk. It's me and my mom actually watched it together yesterday because she also hadn't seen it, and we're big fans of Best in Show, which was made by the same people, Christopher Guest, and who are the other people that made this movie? Adam, you probably know.
Well, this is Rob Reiner, Christopher Guest, Michael McKean, and Harry Shearer.
Right.
Best in Show was part of just the Christopher Guest. The other three, they had a part in Mighty Wind later on, but not part of Best in Show. But it comes from the same school.
But it's like the same, it's the same group of people, and so
right.
me and my mom both love that movie. We were like, well, we realized we both hadn't seen This is Spinal Tap, and it's crazy I haven't seen it because it's right up my alley. I mean, some of the jokes in here, we'll get into it, but some of them are very like they're ahead of their time, hilarious, very musically like technical. Some of the jokes that go over people's heads, I feel like, just very, very funny shit. Adam, why did you pick this movie to cover?
Well, the last time I was on here, I picked like the most emo 1980s movie, which was The Breakfast Club, because I realized it's kind of like a dopey thing for like a weirdo comedian to pick, because although The Breakfast Club really hit home with me, like as a teenager, it doesn't really represent who I am to sort of what my, the kind of work that I do now. So I wanted something that was sort of the opposite of that. And one of the other ones that I wanted was already taken, even though I thought I called dibs, but I guess I didn't.
Jeez, we're having all kinds of fucking issues.
What was it? What was it? What was the movie?
No, I'm just coming out swinging.
Let me hear it.
I wanted to do Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Actually, that's why. But you know what the truth is that this movie is really important to me. I think because it speaks to me both comedically, and that sounds like such a douchebag thing to say, but it's a really funny movie. But it also, I identify, because I have a background in touring production, and I traveled with musicians. I traveled as a tour manager, and I did and I worked at places where these people came through. So that all that really I connected with. I've had a lot of these experiences. I know that sounds ridiculous, like some of the most ridiculous things that happen on there I've been a part of.
Not to cut you off, but I 100% believe you, because I was in a band. Even in high school, I was in a band where we did go on like mini type tours and little things here and there, where we would be in a van for a week at a time touring. And how accurate this movie gets is absurd, because it's so stupid. And you realize how stupid you were or are for being in these fights and being in these scenarios. But to a T, there's like three or four scenes where I was one of the people in this Spinal Tap, for sure. Peter, what was your experience with this movie?
Well, so I love it. I think it's amazing. And I was talking to Alex earlier this week. Like I like that there's still, I've seen a ton of stuff, but I like that there's still stuff that's still new to me. So I just watched all the Christopher Guest stuff just this week in anticipation of this stuff. I think I saw Waiting for Guffman years ago, but I hadn't seen the other ones. And I love all this stuff. And Spinal Tap I probably saw for the first time like maybe 3 years ago, and immediately loved it. And it was just one of those that I had just missed. And I was actually working with guys that were quoting it all the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck it, I got to finally see this movie. And it's so funny, and it's funny because they even I was in the jazz band in high school. Like that's about the extent of my band experience. But like doing some research on it, this movie is spot on with what it is to be in a band. But they also even like predicted stuff. Mm-hmm. The whole like Stonehenge sequence. I think Black Sabbath thought they ripped it off, but they actually came up with it first, and then Black Sabbath did a Stonehenge thing. It's like if you just sort of imagine the kind of things that like a British rock band from that era would do, and literally turn it to 11, like that's how you get Spinal Tap. But it's not that far off from any of these like guys that I actually like love. No, I thought it's so well done. It's so funny, and it's funny. Like talking about like the movie part of it. I hate to say this because he's a dirty liberal, but Rob Reiner doesn't get enough credit for how inventive he is.
Why did you have to throw that in?
I just think it's funny. Movies. I could care less. But like Rob Reiner's had one of the great like Hollywood careers ever. Meathead on All in the Family, and then becomes a director. I mean, he does Princess Bride. He does A Few Good Men. He does Stand By Me. He does this movie, which is basically his directorial debut. And the thing that I think that's interesting about Rob Reiner is like I don't think anybody sits around and goes, yeah, man, I'm a huge Rob Reiner fan. But he's made a bunch of unbelievable movies, and he invented a lot of stuff. So, like, to get real nerdy about it, like Aaron Sorkin, first thing he wrote was A Few Good Men. He wrote it as a play, and then it became a movie, and Rob Reiner directed the movie. Now, Aaron Sorkin is famous for the walk and talk, where people are walking through hallways and doing other stuff while they're talking, because it's very dialogue heavy, so that people are not just sitting down and talking in the movie. Rob Reiner came up with that. Rob Reiner realized that the script was like super talky, and if you watch A Few Good Men, like Tom Cruise and Demi Moore are always like walking through hallways having fights. Like that's a Rob Reiner invention that people give credit to Aaron Sorkin. Same thing with this. Like Christopher Guest went on to do all these like mockumentary films, but a lot of the initial ideas comes out of Rob Reiner. And Robert Reiner appears in the movie as the maker of the documentary, which I think is amazing.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it Martin Breggy? Is that his name in the
Marty
movie?
Marty DeBurgi.
Like, the name is hilarious.
Marty DeBurgi.
The Navy hat is amazing. Like everything about him is great. And Christopher Guest is my favorite part.
He's so good
of this movie.
Yeah.
The you can't dust for vomit is maybe one of the funniest
lines.
lines.
That is so fucking funny. When that whole sequence when they're explaining the drummer's deaths, and it was someone else's vomit in his mouth actually. You're like, wow. They're like, you can't actually tell, but it's so funny, man.
But you see, like, you could see where like they're talking over each other, and then like Christopher Guest like perfect comedian. He's like, all right, I gotta punch this somehow, and he punches it with the dusting for vomit line. Cut. Like perfect comedy scene.
Yeah,
like so good.
So much of it was just off the cuff. I mean, so much of it was just like a lot of those scenes though came from this like background thing that they had written. Now I'm sure the line about the dusting of the vomit, that was new, but the guy choking on vomit. But what is amazing about that is the way that they play together. Like the scene, it's a fine line between clever and then he goes and stupid.
Yeah.
It's amazing that they work together that way. I mean, the two guys are really, in a lot of ways, like Michael McKean and Christopher Guest. I mean, this is the way they're portrayed in the movie, but also how they are as sort of creators. They're a little bit of like a Lennon and McCartney kind of thing, right? Obviously, that's how they play in this movie, right? Is that they play as the two guys who grew up together and sort of absorbed more talented people around them. Yeah. But if you think about the way that, I found out. Do you know that? So when Michael McKean and David Lander had this thing called Lenny and the Squigtones. Have you?
Yeah, right. I was just reading it today. Yeah.
Right. So Alex, do you know what this is? Or no?
I've heard the name, but you please elaborate.
So they were Lenny and Squiggy on Laverne and Shirley, and they did this band called Lenny and the Squigtones, where it was them doing a kind of a sha-na-na kind of thing. And Christopher Guest played in the band as a guitar player named Nigel Tufnell. So it's
so great,
and the names are so. If you think about, I don't know. I mean, like musically, I think there's no coincidence that like Harry Shearer only plays the bass with one hand most of the time. I think he's probably. I don't know this for a fact, but I would guess that he never played the bass before this movie, whereas those two other guys had grown up playing all of these instruments forever, and they were just like, you do this thing.
Yeah. One of the funniest jokes visually in the movie is him playing bass in one of the first scenes where they're playing live. Right. He has a double neck bass, which makes absolutely no sense. If you know anything about music, there's no need for any instrument that is a double neck bass. Like it's so funny and over the top, especially for the type of music that they're playing. Like,
did you notice that they're all playing bass on that track? They're all
I missed that.
All three of them are playing bass. And when they did it on SNL, they did Big Bottom on bass. That's why he's got the double bass, 4 basses. When they did it on SNL, and you can't find this on the internet, I remember this from when I saw it in reruns. Michael McKean introduces them, and he goes, on the double bass, Derek Smalls, and then he goes, and on rhythm bass, Nigel Tufnell, and I'm on lead bass, David St. Albans. And he introduced, it's ridiculous.
That is such a funny joke for musicians. Like,
go back and watch. They're all playing bass on Big Bottom.
Oh God, that's so funny. That's so
why when he says, "Can you play?" When he says to the piano player later in the movie, "Can you play the guitar play part like Nigel played on Big Bottom?" It's just.
Yeah, he says, "Yeah, I got 2 hands. Yeah, I could do that."
Right.
What, Alex? Yeah. What did your mom think?
Oh, she loved it. She loves Christopher Guest. She thought he was amazing. And yeah, we were laughing the whole time. I mean, she was, so my mom's in her late 50s. So she loved it because she was in her 20s in the 80s. And so all of this stuff, she was like, oh my God, like the hair, it was accurate. Like it wasn't like this like mascot-y thing. Like the way I look at that stuff, I go, I find it hard to believe that people actually did that kind of stuff, and actually earnestly like dressed like that. You know what I mean? But she was saying like the outfits that some of the women were wearing. She's like, I can't believe I wore something like that and stuff like that. Like, so she loved it. She loved the aesthetic. She thought, and she was also like, me and her were both like blown away. We kept talking about how like this is the first mockumentary and like how big that style has become. I mean, it's hard to believe that someone could come up with it. You know, like one group of people can just like, we're gonna make this fake documentary. Like nobody was doing anything like this. Like,
yeah. Well, there was one.
Maybe I'm wrong.
There's a thing called, I think it was called the Ruddles, which was like making fun of the Beatles.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of comedy. A lot of comedy is parody, and it's funny. Like a lot of the stuff like predicted, stuff that was to come. Like obviously the whole mockumentary style like blew up with The Office and all this other stuff.
Later, like
yeah, much, and even like Albert Brooks, like his first movie is called Real Life, which is sort of a take on reality shows, like way before the whole reality show thing happened. And it's funny, you guys got me thinking, like, this movie made me like a little bit sad because you think about all the talent that's in this movie, like, and how much comedy depends on like all these geniuses like meeting up with one another. Do you know what I mean? Like Rob Reiner was married to Penny Marshall, who's Laverne from Laverne and Shirley. Michael McKean stars in Laverne and Shirley. Gary Marshall, her brother, created a lot of these shows. Right. Christopher Guest starts at SNL writing. Harry Shearer becomes, one of the main Simpsons guys. It's just this like unbelievable like pool of talent.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes too, like with as much as I love being a stand-up, like watching Christopher Guest just sit in a chair and make me laugh talking made me so jealous. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, I wish I could just sit there with a camera in my face and just riff and do what fucking Christopher Guest does. And it's incredible. And then he, like, took this and then created his own company of actors and made these other films. And it's got to be, like, so great to be, like, being, like, in the first couple of seasons of an SNL. Where they were all basically, like, living at 30 Rock and, like, they were all together, like, all the time. It wasn't, like, a corporate thing. It was just a bunch of like young kids basically like just being crazy, but they were so talented and they all found each other at the same, like the perfect time. And I think like there's something of like a zeitgeist here with these guys. Like they're all, you got Rob Reiner just starting his directing career. You have all these guys that are just like breaking all at the same time, and they're fucking geniuses. It's amazing.
I think oh, go ahead.
One of the, it's important to note, that the thing that they didn't do with the Ruddles, I think, is that they were not improvising, and that's really where. And again, it just goes to your point about what these guys did. And Christopher Guest was, likely given, and Harry Shearer, given their sketch background, they were likely, developing this kind of idea. I have nothing but an amazing amount of respect for Christopher Guest. He plays, you see him in A Mighty Wind, and he plays this killer banjo solo, and he plays the mandolin, and he plays the guitar, and he plays the bass, all with the extra finger. It's amazing to me.
He's got an extra finger?
Right.
So. Oh.
Princess Bride. Princess Bride.
Oh my God! I didn't even think.
He's over our heads, dude. So, Adam you should be hosting this podcast
again. So a Rob Reiner film, and he's the doctor in A Few Good Men.
Yeah.
So like I like and married to Jamie Lee Curtis, one of my.
You have a thing for her.
Oh, totally have a thing for her.
I don't get it. I don't see.
You don't get why she's hot?
I don't think she's no. I don't think she's hot.
He probably thinks of her as like an older woman.
She's the Activia yogurt poop lady. That's all I think of.
Oh, that's why.
All I think of is her pooping out yogurt, like just eating yogurt to poop. That's
To
all
me,
I think about.
she's the hooker from Trading Places. Like
They better have paid her fucking like $500 million for that commercial.
I wouldn't be surprised if she made more money from that than pretty much anything else she ever did in her life.
And she is hot in Trading Places, but I don't think of that version of her. I really, because
by then she's already like considered a middle-aged woman.
Oh really?
Trading Places.
I think no. For a second I was thinking of
You were
True
thinking.
Lies.
No, yeah, Trading Places, like the movie you were saying.
Of course.
Yeah, we had just watched that, so yeah, I definitely, I get what you're saying, but to me, like for years, my impression of her was the Activia poop lady. For years, for 20 years, and then I went back and saw movies where she was hot. So like, it's hard for me to erase that, impression. Honestly,
How much money do these people need that they're willing to?
That's what I'm saying. They must have paid. Like, there's guys who have done like I Can't Get Hard commercials. They must have made a ton of money, right?
I mean, it's possible that Jamie Lee Curtis just has some really bad incontinence problems. So she was like,
maybe she loves.
Maybe you'll give me some of this stuff, right? Like,
or
if you're spending if you're Jamie Lee Curtis, you're spending $80,000 a year on poop yogurt.
Yeah,
I think you're gonna go. Let me just do some commercials and maybe
cut into that stack.
Back in my
life,
or maybe she's like, listen, guys, I love your product. If there's any way we can work together, I'd really like to use my celebrity.
In which case, full circle, she is the yogurt poop lady that I so mentioned before. So. I mean, I am not wrong.
Well, listen, when Christopher Guest got her, she was hot Jamie Lee Curtis. So
he's a fucking hot guy, dude, in this especially. How dreamy is he in this?
His hair is
at least
amazing.
Is that his real hair? Is that
no?
They're wearing wigs. Yeah.
They're definitely. I'm pretty. I mean, do you not think so? I don't know for sure.
I'm gonna Google it right now because we're on the podcast.
Peter looks a little. I mean, it looks a little not sure.
If any of them is not wearing a wig, I would think it was Christopher Guest. Like I'm 100% that the other two are wearing wigs.
Right.
Christopher Guest, I could be convinced that that's his actual hair.
Did you see
Christopher Guest? They were real wigs, and they were real cheap ass wigs. I grew my facial hair out for the movie, but I got hair extensions for the tour. So apparently it was some of his hair, but there were like wig extensions.
The funny thing too is they're mocking like 70s bands at this point, but then they sort of predict the 80s hair bands.
Well, they also, the movie came out in the 80s, so I think it was taken from multiple sources. For sure 70s for the most part, but there was some Kiss take. Well, Kiss is 70s too, yeah.
If you think about the Def Leppards, though, that's really what they're doing, because Def Leppard is like, they're big in the 70s, but then the hair band explosion comes out,
and they're sort of old guys, but
yeah, they're a little older than like the Guns N' Roses and whatever kind of guys. But that's exactly the whole point. Is like it, and you go back and I watched all the extras, so like I started to piece together the history. So like the gag is that these guys the characters were making music in 1962. Right. So by 1984, they talk about them like they're only, they're almost 40 in their late 30s. But I think if you do the math, the characters probably make more sense to be 44, 45. Right.
Correct.
Because if it's 1962, I
guess in their 20s.
I guess they could be 18, but even still, that only puts them at like 38.
Yeah.
Makes more sense that they're 22. Because that's pretty young to be on TV.
For
22.
sure. Yeah.
Right. So then you do the math and they come out to be like 40, which of course is probably what the guys were anyway. So they're definitely aging.
I'm sorry, the Beatles were they like 21, 23 when they first...
The Beatles, that's the same trajectory. Yeah. They were in their 20s in the late 60s, basically.
I didn't know Def Leppard had been around in the 70s.
Yeah, they were. I mean, they weren't. It's not like they were the same kind of big success that's the Spinal Tap band had, because in the movie Spinal Tap breaks in the late '60s with the Power People thing. But there were bands that were originally starting more like a hardcore thing. So I guess in that case, Def Leppard is not but I'm also not the authority on that.
Yeah, no. You're right on here. I'm blown away by how funny this movie is and how and I love music, so like as someone who like appreciates especially like the history of rock and roll, like I love Almost Famous. A lot of people like don't like that movie, a lot of people like that movie, but it's one of my favorite movies because of like how well they tell the story of like 70s 80s type rock and roll and the touring and just that life, man. That lifestyle was pretty wild, and it's just I don't see how you're not interested in even as a joke and a complete goof. It's just fun to watch the people interact the way they do, and a couple of things they just nail so on the head, like with the girlfriend of the lead singer. That is such a trope. It happens in local bands. It happens in big famous bands. There's always some girl who comes in and ruins the fucking whole thing, and they do it exactly like they did. Like she played a great. I don't know who was that in the movie. Who's the actress? Do we know?
Great job.
Janine is the name. Janine. I have it written out somewhere. Oh, I should have been.
Oh no, Adam. Come on, please. To have notes at all is amazing. But yeah, it's fine. I just wanted to give her credit. She's great, man. Because she's such a, conniving and driving a wedge between the two guys. Like it's crazy. And there's a great moment in the movie where what's Rob Reiner's character?
Marty DeBurgi.
DeBurgi asks, he's interviewing them, right? And he asks, and he's blown away that Christopher Guest is like, who's the blonde guy?
Michael McKean.
Michael McKean. Michael McKean is basically throwing Christopher Guest under the bus, saying like, it won't matter that much. We'll get used to it. We've had 10 drummers. It's not a big deal. And Rob Reiner's like, I can't believe you're doing this. You're gonna treat. You guys have been playing music for 20 plus years. You grew up together. You're gonna treat him like just someone you just met, and it's true. That's like what these girls do to lifelong brothers, man. It's not to be anti whatever girl, or it's not about her being a girl. It's about the relationship going in and ruining the more important relationship, which is their band.
No, dude. Own it, man. Girls ruin everything.
Yeah, dudes rock and girls suck.
They ruin comedy careers. They ruin. If you're a movie producer, you're just minding your business, being a fat, gross movie producer. Girls try to ruin that from you.
What are you trying to say here?
I'm not nothing.
I read that the whole thing with the girl with his girlfriend was added later.
Really?
Originally there was a subplot about the opening band that was all women that gave them all herpes, which is why there's a couple things in the extras. There's a scene, everybody has herpes. There's a shot of everybody has herpes. They've all got it. There's a part where the keyboard player and the drummer are talking about how to get rid of it. They've all got, and apparently there was this subplot that I guess got abandoned, and then they brought her in, and that's why it all. I mean, I think you're right. It's like it's perfectly executed, it is a trope, but it's a trope because it's believable. Yes. You know what I mean? It's like if it didn't happen, you'd almost be like, I don't understand how that doesn't happen.
It's the main conflict in the movie. I mean, you have to have it. Right. And it's not just one story they pull from. Like, sure, the Yoko Ono, John Lennon, Paul McCartney divide, like that's the main one. But there's countless examples of it happening, and it's just great. It's great how much they could pull from these bands in real life that were actually stuffing their pants to make them look like they had huge dicks. Like the guy pulls out he pulls out like a cucumber in the
airport. In aluminum foil.
Or an eggplant, like a literal eggplant he pulls out. It's just like hilarious.
Again, and I mean, there's over an hour of outtakes. I would say go back, watch the outtakes, because I gotta
find this.
And a lot of times it's better because they do a whole setup for the cucumber thing. So ultimately I understand why they cut it, because the joke works out of nowhere, but it's a deeper joke, but it's really worth watching. I mean, what amazes me, and they did so much work. There's a scene where Paul Schaefer playing the rep, right? So he's trying to get them to go to a radio station. And he goes, what do I got to do to get you guys to get up at 6:30 in the morning and come to this radio station? What do I got to do? I got to, and he reaches over to like a room service plate. And he goes, do I got to smash an egg on my head? And he smashes an egg on his face. He goes, what? I got to, he smashes an egg on his face. He goes, what do I got to do? Do I got to get you guys? And of course they go. And then can you imagine you're Paul Schaefer and you smash an egg on your face for a movie, and then they don't use it? Come on, guys, use it. I had egg in my hair for nothing.
Yeah.
Speaking of Paul Schaefer,
it's so and
I was gonna say there's tons of talent in this movie besides just the main guys. Like, it's an unbelievable. Like Billy Crystal as a mime with one of the funniest lines in the movie. Mime is money. I fucking love that line for some reason. But there's just like Fran Drescher at the party, like.
Yeah.
Bruno Kirby is the limo driver. It's just like, again, it's like I'm sure they just rounded up their friends and were like, come on, let's have a party. But I do think I do think the movie flags a little bit in the middle. I think they start with the best bits. Right. I do think that that opening scene of them getting interviewed by Reiner is the best part of the movie. But what saves them, not that the movie needed saving, but what really keeps me involved is that it has a lot of heart. It really is about two friends. And it's funny because the Beatles, they lasted about 7 years, and people outgrow each other, and bands famously they start hating each other. Spinal Tap, they grew apart after 22 years. You're supposed to believe that all of a sudden they can't stand each other anymore. But at the heart of the movie is the relationship between McKean's character and Christopher Guest's character, and it's great. And Harry Shearer just sort of being kind of the dopey guy in the middle, and his line too when he's like, "I'm in the middle of fire and ice, which makes me warm water."
Wait, he's like, I think of myself as lukewarm water.
It's amazing, but that's
very funny.
He's just like the dopey guy in the middle who's just like, "Come on, guys, let's make this work." But it's really. That's why the ending is really earned where they play together one last time, because I mean again it's like every girls can't understand this, but guys know that when you when you lose your friend, you grow apart from your friend, if you ever get a chance to get back together with that best friend, is amazing.
It's the best. It's some of the best moments in life. So Adam, just so I know, are you referring to This is Spinal Tap, the Criterion with Extras edition?
I have the DVD that came out in 2003. It's, from what I understand, because I was looking it up to see what else might be online.
Yeah.
There's the 70 minutes of extras is pretty much available starting in 2000 and later, I think is what it is.
Yeah, it says over an hour of deleted scenes, and then it says they have commentary tracks, and then also a 20-minute demo reel.
And that's actually after the one that I have, so I think that's it. Did you catch the best cameo? Did you catch my favorite cameo? Do you know who that is? The sculptor for Stonehenge. Did you catch it?
No.
It's Angelica Houston.
Oh my God.
I'm watching it and I'm going, I recognize that face. I don't know who it is. I recognize the face. I don't know who it is. And then at the end, I watch it. And it says Angelica Houston, and I was like, no shit. I couldn't believe it. And then, as if they didn't expect you to believe it, the very last title card on the version that I watched is like a still of that scene so that you can see it's Angelica Houston. I was like, that's pretty cool. But
cool. Oh, wow. I didn't notice, but you're right. Wow, I'm sorry. She fell off, though. Holy shit.
She got old.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, she's just old. That's true. I don't mean to, but I'm just looking at how she looks young. And it's like, wow.
Yeah, she was
gorgeous.
One of the hottest women in Hollywood.
Well, how old is she? These are all black and white photos. Maybe this is
she's
really
probably in her 60s now.
Maybe a little older than that, man. Let me see.
She was probably in her 70s, I would think. I mean,
she was.
She is.
She was Jack Nicholson's girlfriend in the 70s and early 80s.
She's 69 years old. She was born in 51. Yeah.
Yeah. So by this, she's 32, 33.
Yeah.
another thing I noticed, I was thinking about this movie came out in '84, and we've talked a lot about how '85 is a big year, but like '84. I feel like '85 is like the year where like the '80s movies became established and big and mainstream.
Right.
But '84 was when they were really like breaking ground and kind of setting the tone for. I mean, it's when Terminator came out, Gremlins, Ghostbusters. All these movies were huge risks at the time. Well, I mean, they were not necessarily like financial risks, but they were doing something. It's easy to look back now and be like, oh, well, obviously Terminator is a huge hit, but at the time it was very experimental, small budget. Ghostbusters, like no one, could have predicted that would be like a monster hit. Gremlins, there's a lot of like weird, interesting choices of movies that came out in '84 that really worked, and I really like '84 definitely is in the running for like the best year of '80s movies. Splash, like a lot of just like risky premises and like movies that may like on paper like may not necessarily sound like they would work. But they fucking hit it out of the park over and over and over again. Like, it must have been amazing to be going to the movies in 1984.
I think that one of the key things about the 80s movie that you're talking about is establishes this idea that you walk into a movie, you go, all right, well, we know that none of this is ever going to happen. Let's just put that to the side right now. We're going to establish that the most nonsensical stuff is believable, which in the case of this movie really helps because this movie is actually, even to that extent, it's pretty believable. You know what I mean? But you believe the excess of it because it's an excess time. Versus you look at A Mighty Wind, right? 2003. What's going on in movies? And movies are becoming much similar, right? 2005 is Batman Begins, which is the most believable superhero story ever, which is why I think when you watch A Mighty Wind, some of the things that the characters do don't actually hold up in the same kind of way that they do in this period, because these people are relatively sane in like a collective that's insane, right?
Yes.
And then you got the folk people in A Mighty Wind who are, you're like, well, why? There's some shit that happens in that movie that I just don't buy because the tone of movies at the time was more realistic. So yes, I think you're totally right.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying about the period of time really helps.
There was a lot of, I think the way you put it, it's like there was a lot of, as long as the audience buys this premise, like they're going to be in good hands.
Right.
Like if you don't question the fact that there's a little creature called a mogwai and you can just buy him at a shop, we promise that the rest of the movie will be good. You know what I mean? Or like if you just buy in that in the future the robots take over and there's time travel and there's a woman who's going to give birth to the hero of the, like, as long as like it's just like they just dial into like every movie has this Splash came out that year. Like, all right, it's a given. There's mermaids. Let's just roll with it. But also, like, not necessarily just like, Karate Kid came out that year. 16 Candles came out that year. Police Academy. Like, it was just a lot of stuff where Nightmare on Elm Street. It was like a lot of things where it was like, all right, we're going to cover every base. We're going to cover every possible genre. And we're just going to nail it. Like, all these movies just fucking nail it.
It's astounding how many films came out in that 4-year pocket of the mid-'80s.
Right.
Like, it's crazy. Doing this podcast has shown me. Like, all of these movies are influential, and, here and there we'll do some ones that aren't or a little bit more obscure, but for the most part, the movies we cover on this podcast are monumentally, like huge films, that have influenced millions of people, and really 90% of them are from like this 4-year pocket. It's crazy. I just can't think of, I don't know, maybe it's because we're in it, but it just doesn't seem like movies from 2017 to 2020. There's that many movies that were that monumental. I don't know. Maybe they will age differently.
Well, it was also like at this time, it's like it was it's maybe like one big idea, but they just stuck to that one big idea and they executed it. And the movie itself is like a manageable whole. Like now, it's like they have to throw everything into like the last Mission Impossible movie I loved, but it's just too much of everything. It's like the greatest motorcycle chase and the greatest helicopter chase and the greatest, jumping out of a plane seat. It's just like, and an amazing bath. It's like, I felt like overloaded by stuff. Where if you go back and you watch like Splash or Gremlins or Police Academy, it's like, Police Academy it's basically one joke. It's a bunch of like screw ups
Yeah.
training to become cops. Like that's the joke, but it's just execution. And the same thing with Spinal Tap. It's like, all right, this is
It's one joke.
Bands are ridiculous.
Yeah.
They're dumb. They're famous and rich, even though they're morons.
Yeah.
That's literally the joke of the movie. But when you like hyper focus on that, you know what I'm saying? Like Ghostbusters is a ridiculous idea.
It really
but
is.
But the movie takes the premise seriously.
Yes.
I think that's what's happening here. Like they don't need to like throw a lot of shit at it. It's just we have a bunch of really talented guys and we have a premise, and even though it's ridiculous, and I think this comes out of like the sketch and improv background, like the whole, if you watch like really good improv, which I have seen amazing improv in my time, it's literally taking one. I don't mean that to be funny. I've seen there's guys
immediately started laughing.
I did improv first. I actually ran away from stand up. The guy who ran Ali Farnakian, who is an incredible comedian, incredible improviser who owns the Pit. Back when I was taking classes there, he was still teaching like the highest level class. And at the very end of it, when he like gives you feedback, you're kind of like, everybody takes improv classes. It's like wanting to fit in and wanting to have, validation. So you go to the very end and you're hoping to like audition for an improv team, like a house improv team. And he sits down with me and he goes, you seem really comfortable talking right to the audience. Why don't you do stand up? And I took it like, I was like, you mean I'm not good enough to do improv? But like, I'm sorry. It comes out of that background of like playing off each other, and like these guys, like, like Aykroyd and Bill Murray, or these guys in this movie, they spent years like cultivating this ability to just take a crazy premise and just make it work. Like beat the shit out of it. You know what I mean? Like just like do every angle you could possibly think of. They didn't leave any stone unturned in this movie as far as like what's a rock band, what's ridiculous about being famous and rich and being in a rock band.
Yeah.
A lot of the 80s is about this broad stroke thing, right? Where it's like you're gonna, like you just said, like you're gonna take this one thing and pull it. It's loud colors and like a giant pink wall. That's the 1980s, and that's what comedy was. It was like this movie is a giant pink wall where each little square is a new joke.
Yes.
Is what I mean.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't know that makes sense, but that's
no, that does totally make sense. Yeah.
And I mean, I think it's interesting. It makes sense that the 80s sort of has lasted as a genre because of that, because their movies themselves are so unique in the way that they function, the same way that, film noir, but it spans the late 30s to early 40s, and like all the other genres, the only one that really sort of lands right in the middle of a decade is the 80s movie. And because of that, it never really got another, I mean, it doesn't have another name to it. It's like a comedy, drama, parody. Like it's perfectly reasonable in one movie to have a really emotional, heartfelt scene, and then a scene where like a guy is like flipping over like on a banana peel, and then he lands and he knocks his head and he wakes up, and suddenly the world is taken over by robots. And it's like, this is all in one movie. And I mean, whatever that is.
Well, they all had a lot of. I mean, Beverly Hills Cop is '84 too, and I think, arguably, I think that might be the best of the '80s movies, and especially like comedy, drama, whatever.
Right.
It has a lot of heart. Like the movie works because of like it establishes the heart at the beginning, and then it lets Eddie Murphy go. Like you know what I mean? Like it doesn't need much, and and even like that's. All the teen movies. There's a million teen movies in the 80s, but they're all like grounded in reality. They're all real people that you start to care about.
They have a ton of heart. So the jokes are like, I can't watch comedies now. Like I don't want like ridiculous, because few and far between. There are some good ones. There are some.
I'll watch it, but like I want to like, for me it's like I want to spend time with the characters.
Yeah.
So if I like the characters, I'll spend 90 minutes to 2 hours with them. And if they're just like silly just for being silly, or they're or I'm constantly going, this would never happen in real life, like this doesn't resemble life at all, I just get turned off. So like even like all the comedies from this time period, it's like I get these guys, even though I don't have any experience like being in a rock band, like I don't know these guys, but I go, oh, this makes sense. This relationship makes sense to me. I know what it is to be like jealous of my friend, or to like, you know, be close to somebody and then now you're not close anymore, or to get what you thought you wanted and it turns out it doesn't make you feel that good. You know, like all that stuff is like grounded in real emotions.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, there's, you know, every now and then there's a comedy that's made that's good, that's, you know, a newer, more modern thing, but it's not typically a wide release. It's not typically something that's going to be a massive blockbuster, which this wasn't, by the way. I mean, this had a $2 million budget, made $4.7 million at the box office. I think it took off later with the VHS release and, you know, got its cult following and everything. But a lot of the comedy that comes out today that is truly, you know, I think will hold up and like is good, or they're released on like the streaming platforms. You're not talking about like these big budget Hollywood type things. I mean, those comedies kind of have really fallen off in the last like 6-7 years, to be honest with you. I mean,
I think some of that comes from the sort of saturation of like the character market that came out of SNL in the last 20 years. Not to say that the writing isn't good, but, you know, there was like this thing, I'm sure you remember it, where like for a little while, SNL movies were fantastic. And you got your Wayne's World. I mean, obviously there's the Blues Brothers, but that sort of predates it. But you know, you have your Wayne's World and Coneheads. You know, you have some successful movies that work. And, you know, when they tried it, and some of them worked better than others. And then this idea came out of that where you could just take two funny people and give them a script that doesn't go anywhere, right? And it works better. It actually works better in this kind of thing. I would love to see John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell, Step Brothers, improv. You know what I mean? Like, let's see that movie, because but I don't know, maybe they can't do it. I mean, these guys are you know, I watched this movie and A Mighty Wind and all the work that all of these people have done, and I just think there's no way that I could ever be as talented as these people. I mean, the way that they approach their art is just so wide viewing, and I don't think anybody's really doing that. Nobody can do the character and the writing anymore.
We have to start an improv team. That's really what is the only solution here, I think.
What, three white guys?
I mean, everyone's worried about the future of stand-up comedy. Maybe the future of stand-up comedy is that we all start improv teams. And just start.
Someone's telling me that that's not right.
In a park, just doing it in the park.
I think I think you're better. He's just sinking. Adam's disappearing from the camera.
What's wrong with it, bro?
I mean, the people
those
that
people
do
are
it.
very talented. I used to watch. I used to watch people that are now like on TV, like doing big stuff. I used to watch them do improv back when I was young and improv.
I haven't said anything about improv. I haven't said anything bad about improv. I'm not good at improvisation because every time I say something, I immediately go, "Oh, I should have said it." Like I can tell you how many times a week. You've
done it like 6 times on this podcast.
You're like, what if I said Navy instead of Royal Blue? Like you know the scene.
I literally deleted the tweet today because I changed the word "could" to "would." I was like, "Oh, it's way better with could." So I couldn't do that. I couldn't do the improv thing.
That's very funny, Adam. You know, speaking of, I did see, I don't often do this on the podcast, but I did see a good new movie, like really new. Wondering if you guys have seen it, and if you have your opinions, and if not, I recommend it. It's the Hulu movie, Palm Springs, with, what's his name? From SNL.
Adam Sandberg.
Andy Samberg.
Have you seen it, either of you?
I have not seen it.
It'll surprise you. I went into it. You know, a girl wanted to watch it. This is how I watched it with a girl on like a Friday night. It was so good that I had to watch it again Saturday night and then show my mom Sunday night and watch it I watched it 3 times in a row. It's really good, and it's not just funny. It's like it's got heart. It's a good story. It's interesting, and the acting's great. And Andy Samberg's like really likable, and it's got a good script. I mean, it's an interesting, unique type story. It's good. It's highly recommended to anyone listening.
I've heard good things about it. I understand that the plot is unique, so I will ask that you not say anything more about it. I'm not
gonna give it away.
I was gonna say, like, the movies that make me laugh now are movies that are not marketed as comedies.
It's not even. Yeah, it really isn't.
Like, I mean, like, I was thinking about today, like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That movie made me laugh a lot.
Agreed.
Tarantino
Goodfellas
movies
makes me laugh.
are hilarious.
Goodfellas makes me laugh more than most comedy specials.
Yeah, and
It's so funny.
The Coen brothers, if you go back, because especially like Coen brothers movies reward rewatching. If you go back and rewatch, you laugh even more because you see like all this, like people are just stone faced delivering these lines, and some of them are so ridiculous that you don't even catch it the first time around. But yeah, like those movies are not. They're not like they're not comedian like sketch comics trying to make a comedy. They're making movies that just happen to be hilarious.
Yes.
It's like the airplane thing about how everyone knows airplane work because they cast a bunch of real people. I mean, not real people, but they cast a bunch of people playing it like
actors.
real people.
Yeah.
Dramatic actors. Thank you.
Well, I was just seeing something recently where they're like, I don't think Robert Stack knew what was going on.
And he didn't get it.
Someone was like, just do it like you do it. And
that's what it was. The story was that Lloyd Bridges said to him, Robert, they just want us to be us.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I heard that story too on, I remember on some other, not another podcast, not the one where they don't let people talk.
Okay, yeah.
I
gotta know with this podcast.
I'll tell you off camera.
I mean, it's just this movie. I think really just sort of represents it like I think you're right. I think it represents the 1980s version of what comedy is.
Yes.
Because nobody had done anything like that really in this way before, and they really went big or went home, and it just exploded in the same way that Gremlins and Police Academy and 16 Candles and all of these other movies launched a new kind of thing. You're totally right about that. It makes sense that it's 1984, yeah.
Yeah, and all the jokes are thrown away, which is my favorite way to do comedy.
Yes.
There's no like arrow going. There's a joke. It's like literally people are walking away. Like when he says the joke about like, oh, it's only Boston. Don't worry, it's not a big college town.
Yeah,
the guy is like literally leaving the room.
His back is to the camera.
Does like no emphasis. Like I love that kind of comedy.
Yeah, if you're not paying attention, you could totally miss it.
Yeah, and that's what I like. I think the people who really love movies love picking up on the stuff that regular people don't pick up on, and that's what you pick up on, when you're paying attention, is when people are throwing jokes away. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie Bottle Rocket, which is Wes Anderson's first movie. And I love early like Rushmore and Royal Tenenbaums are two of my favorite movies of all
Royal
time.
Tenenbaums is great.
I like Wes Anderson like a little less every movie, but I still like watch all his stuff. But like Rushmore and Tenenbaums is huge for me. But if you watch Bottle Rocket, like it's brothers and their friend, and they kind of don't like their friend, and they go to their friend's house and they're like, how did a guy like Bob get a kitchen like this? And like it's such a and it's said like off camera. I think Owen Wilson says it off camera, and it's like such a like, it's a joke rooted in like you have a friend, but really you don't like your friend.
I love that.
You know what I mean?
I love
like,
that concept. Yeah, that's so true.
Which is like a real high school way to be. Like, yeah, we hang out with this guy because we see him every day.
Yeah,
but he's kind of a dick, and then it turns out he's richer than you, which makes him worse.
Yeah,
as a person. Like I love jokes like that. It's fucking amazing.
I think you're right. I mean, it's why, because there's nobody falling down. You're rarely laughing. I have to say that one of the jokes that bugs me in Spinal Tap is the thing where he falls over and they have to lift him up. Because to me, that's like a visual sight gag. It doesn't. Yeah. It's not that I don't believe it. It's just not the rest of the movie. You know what I mean?
You're right.
The rest of the movie is all like it's thrown away jokes. It's things that are happening in a sort of subtle way, or they're doing it in the people don't know that it's funny. The people who are there don't understand the humor of the situation. And if they know that it's wrong, they're angry about it. Like Stonehenge or the Pods.
I don't know if any laughter happens by the characters. It's so like there's maybe one laugh by these characters, and it's like a sarcastic laugh. Like that, I agree with 100%. When he fell to the floor and he had to get picked back up, I almost cringed at that part. I was like, oh, don't be this kind of movie. This isn't what this isn't what
Right.
it is. It was
Yeah.
odd
Right,
that
it
they
doesn't-
left that in.
And the most famous gag of the 11
Yeah.
on the speaker, what makes that amazing is Rob Reiner going, well, why don't you just have 10 be louder?
Right.
And then Christopher Guest pauses and he goes, this one goes to 11. Like he just doesn't he doesn't even understand the question.
Yes.
But it's like
But without that question, the character Christopher Guest is playing wouldn't have said anything funny. Because
Yeah.
it's his genuine stupidity that's funny.
But it's not it's not hammering.
No.
Like he just happens to be dumb.
Yes.
You're not but you're not announcing that the guy is like, it's literally him repeating the question, which tells the audience is dumb, but it's like kind of profound at the same time.
It's perfect.
It's
As opposed to a situation where he's tripping all over the guitars, or like he doesn't, he something very obvious and blatant is happening. Totally right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was a really great point, Adam. There was that scene really stood out to me as not really in the tone and almost just like if there were like 5 jokes like that in the movie, I almost wouldn't like the movie. Like that would be too obvious. That would be way too, what do you call it, when hit over the head with the comedy.
Yeah.
But I think that's a problem with
Looney Tunes.
we talked about this when we did like National Lampoon's Vacation, because I feel like a lot of these movies.
A lot of it is like that. Yeah.
Well, a lot of these movies had a problem. The problem with comedy in this time period is it all comes out of sketch.
Yeah.
So they don't know how to make a 90-minute long comedy. So it's just a lot of sketches strung together. And Vacation, I thought, did it amazing because literally you're going from town to town. So each scene is a new sketch. But like when you are like, that's why I say like this movie like does sag a little bit in the middle, is because when you are stringing sketches together, you're gonna have a couple of moments that are not as good as the other moments. I also think that 80 minutes is the perfect length for a comedy.
Yes. Yeah.
All of these mockumentaries are around that long, and it's perfect.
For a movie like this where the story is not, I mean, there's plenty of funny movies that have a deeper story where you need a little bit more, I think. But I think in a movie like this that almost barely has a plot, only has a plot, so that 80 minutes doesn't feel like it's too long. I think you're totally right about that. Yeah. And, but I mean, I watch the outtakes, and I think some of this stuff makes it a fuller movie that I would love to see, like a director's cut, because there are things like I would love to go back. I don't know that I should do this, obviously, but I'd love to go and take that guitar scene out and then put this whole other thing back in.
Yeah.
There's a couple other subplots that they have scenes of, and there's like a couple things that I saw and I was like, all right, I understand that asks a question that is never answered, so I could see why that's not in there. But there's really a lot of there's a lot more to it, I think, so that it could almost play longer, but you're totally right that it doesn't really need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, like that herpes thing. Like they don't, they show that the guys have herpes on their face for like one scene, and then you kind of forget about it. It's never really brought up again. So that would be cool if they threw that in there and took out that stupid guitar scene. Yeah. No, I mean, it is what it is. They made a great film, so I'm sure that the things that fell on the cutting room floor had to, for whatever one reason or another.
Yeah,
but
I think we've definitely emphasized that to the audience that everybody should go out and see this movie.
Oh yeah, if you haven't
see it again.
I can't imagine. Yeah, if you're a listener of this podcast, I mean, I'd be surprised if you haven't seen this. But God, if you haven't seen this, do yourself a favor and watch this movie. It's for anything, if it's just a piece of history. It's the first of its kind. It launched a whole genre. You have to see this movie. It's fantastic.
Yeah. No, it's great. Thanks, Adam, for coming back on and doing this.
Adam,
do you have anything you want to talk about, plug, or doing shows again, or?
Yeah, thank you guys very much for having me. I love coming on here. I love talking to both of you guys.
We love having you anytime, honestly.
All right, next time. I'll be here next week. No,
yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm down.
We won't even have you talk. We'll just have
you that's good. We'll get him back on for the silent episode.
Rest is a mime.
We'll have Adam do cameos on our podcast.
I'll come on and I will talk about. I'll shit talk other podcasts.
Yes. We'll have a segment. That'd be great.
I've been trying to do some shows. I'm gonna be in Akron I don't know when this is going to air, but people don't care. I'm going to be in Akron in the middle of August, and I'll be traveling a bit. Here's the thing. Go to adamtellsjokes.com,
Boom.
which is where I post all of I got some videos there, and I got my dates. I would really appreciate it if you enjoyed any portion of what you heard from me tonight, that you go to YouTube and check out the Lifestyle Report with Adam, which is on my page, Adam Gabel. It's a stupid little 4-minute video, weekly video thing I've been doing since the pandemic started, and I just do a bunch of jokes about movies and pop culture that I would love for people to check out. That is also linked on the videos page of my website, adamtellsjokes.com.
Okay, great. It's called the Lifestyle Report with Adam.
Yes, on YouTube.
On YouTube. Great. No, I mean, honestly, I haven't. I'm gonna check it out tonight. That's great. We'll give you a subscribe from our YouTube when we post this too. So
awesome, dude.
I want to check those out. What else should we say, Peter? Do you have anything?
I mean, I started doing shows again, but it's like once every 2 weeks. But it is. I mean, it's definitely the new normal is these outdoor shows. So I did a show in the Bronx, like at an Italian restaurant outside last Monday, and it was great. It's like one of those things where it's like we're all, this is what we're gonna have to do. You know what I mean? I think you can be spoiled sometimes, like though you want like the perfect environment for doing comedy, but I mean the thing is gonna be doing podcasts by Zoom and then doing outdoor shows. So
who'd have guessed that?
I was gonna say I don't have anything else lined up right now, but I definitely gonna be trying to do more and more of those. Just whatever we can do to keep performing.
Yeah. Eventually I'll do one of those outdoor shows. I'm just kind of hoping this all ends before I have to start doing that. But yeah, it's been too long. I suck at comedy now. So we'll see. I don't know, man. It's gonna be tough. But obviously we're gonna have more episodes. We've been putting these out every Tuesday. So we're recording this on a Monday night. I'm gonna try and get this out by tomorrow night. So I'll do my best. But so Adam, just so you know, this will probably be going up tomorrow night. So check out what was it again on YouTube?
It's the Lifestyle Report with Adam on YouTube.
Perfect.
And you can also check it out, adamtellsjokes.com.
Beautiful. All right. Have a good week, everybody. And talk to you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.